He's looking for people that believe that there will be a fulfillment of those things. You know, Hebrews 11 talks about the heroes of faith. It's called the Hall of Fame of Faith. And you have all these different players, all these different individuals, but what they had in common was they believed a promise from God. It wasn't the same promise, but it was the same principle. And so Mary obviously joins that group because Elizabeth identified that she believed there would be a fulfillment of those things which were told her from the Lord. That pleases God. And so even the Christmas story had the element of faith in it. In other words, you know, God, even though He's going to do this for the world, He's going to give the world the gift of His Son, He's still going to have people involved in faith. You know, God could have had a stork bring Jesus to the manger. He could have had Him come in any number of ways, but He chose to do it through human beings because, of course, Jesus had to be a man, but He chose to use faith. He could have planted that divine seed in Mary before she knew what was happening, and she could have been pregnant and wondered how it happened, and then He could have explained it, but that's not really. Most of the time, God gives a promise. He gives you a promise, and then He expects you to believe it. And you don't say, well, why do we have to believe the promises of God? Well, if God gives you a promise and you don't believe it, that's insulting, because God is able to keep His word. And so one of the things we do to glorify God, to please God as an act of worship to God, is believe what He said. And it pleases God when His children take these unbelievable promises. And the Bible talks about Noah and Moses and Joseph and Jacob and Abraham, and it goes on and on with these people who believed these unbelievable promises, and they stand in the face of adversity and say, I believe God is able to do what God said He would do. And so Mary joins that group on that day because she said, let it be to me according to your word. I'm going to do it. Sign me up. I'm ready. I'm believing. Elizabeth recognized that Mary believed. But now notice, I want to take you back because Zechariah, who was Elizabeth's husband, he didn't have the same experience when he was told about the birth of his son. And Zechariah was a high priest. And let's just go to Zechariah, Luke chapter 1 and we'll start in verse 7. Zechariah and Elizabeth, it says they had no children because Elizabeth was barren, and they were both well advanced in years. So it was that while he was serving as priest before God in the order of his division, according to the custom of the priesthood, his lot fell to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. So he was a priest, and it became his turn to go burn incense in the presence of God. Now, I guess I don't want to assume anything. You know, Elizabeth was John the Baptist's mother. Zechariah was John the Baptist's dad. And so they couldn't have children until they got really old. They were well advanced in years. So this promised son that they're going to receive will become John the Baptist, who Jesus said was the greatest prophet in the Old Testament. So let's read on. And so verse 10, and the whole multitude of the people was praying outside at the hour of incense. So Zechariah goes into the presence of the Lord, and everyone's waiting outside for him to finish this ceremony. And in verse 11, then an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zechariah saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him, which is kind of Mary's reaction. It says she was afraid. Zechariah's afraid. I guess everyone thinks if an angel's going to appear, they're in trouble. I don't think you see anyone in the Bible that had an encounter with an angel that said, man, I'm glad to see you. I've been waiting for you. I've been looking for something like this. They all just fall on their face or run away, or they're afraid. And so I guess the angels are used to it. Verse 13, the angel said to him, do not be afraid, Zechariah, for your prayer is heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name John. and you will have joy and gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth. For he will be great in the sight of the Lord, and neither shall he drink wine or strong drink. He'll be filled with the Holy Spirit even from his mother's womb. And in verse 18, Zechariah said to the angel, how shall I know this? For I am an old man, and my wife is well advanced in years. He's basically saying, I see you, but I just really don't believe this. I mean, can you give me a sign? It's good that Mary didn't ask for a sign. Zechariah asked for a sign. He's going to get a sign. And the angel answered and said, I am Gabriel, who stands in the presence of God, and I was sent to speak to you and bring you these glad tidings. And you're not even glad. You first you're afraid, and now you're doubting. And so, behold, verse 20, you will be mute and not able to speak until the day these things take place, because you did not believe my words, which will be fulfilled in their own time. And so he wanted to know, how am I going to know this? I'm an old man. How about this? You can't speak for 9 months. Will that prove it? And verse 21, the people waited for Zechariah and marveled that he lingered so long in the temple. And when he came out, he could not speak to them. And they perceived that he had seen a vision in the temple, for he beckoned to them and he remained speechless.